Oh, here we go. We're good. Black Monday is the new Showtime series about the stock market crash of 1987, which competes in the comedy categories at the Emmys, Globes, and other awards. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby here with Paul Scheer, who plays Broker Keith. Paul, what's so funny about financial disaster?
Well, the show Black Monday, like you said, is based in a real life event. And what I love about not the event, obviously it was a terrible event and many people lost a lot of money and their livelihoods and some people lost their lives. But what I love about the stock market is the way that these brokers acted in the 80s. They were doing coke, they were going out, they were partying, they were living the life of a rock star without any of the fame. And really, that's the funniest thing to me about it. It was like they just would go back home to Long Island, and they're living this precarious life where when I was doing my research for the character, I watched this one guy make $1 million in a day in the 80s, which is huge. And then the next month, he was managing a gym, not running a gym. He was like the manager, one of four at this gym. And I was like, this is mind blowing. I've never seen such a high stake, low stake world in my life.
Yeah. And coming into the series, particularly thinking back to when you were shooting the pilot, what was the energy like on set?
I think when you first read the script, or at least when I did, it had a feeling that it could go the way of Anchorman, something big and broad. And when Don attached himself to the show, Don brings an energy that's completely unique and different than, Will Ferrell. I think what he does is he really grounds the character. And I think that grounded the entire show. So all of a sudden, we have these big jokes and these big moments, but they all start to feel really real. And one of the things that I loved about the show was, my character, I got to do all this sort of uh, more dramatic stuff and kind of different things than I've ever gotten to do. And I think a lot of that was based on what we did in the pilot, figuring out the tone of the show, which is like, yes, we can do crazy, but it has to be something that could happen in the real world. And it's kind of walking that line in between the Oliver Stone version of Wall Street and the Wolf of Wall Street movie. It's like, how can we make these characters real so we actually feel for them? Because they do have stakes and they do have consequences. And without that, I think the show flutters. So that's really what I think the pilot was like kind of figuring out that balance. And then what was it like besides that? I probably got some sort of a lung disease because we had not figured out how to do the smoking yet. Everyone was smoking. We were in a small room with no ventilation in a practical location. And I came home and I reeked of smoke so badly that it was going back inside like I would breathe in my own breath and be like, this is disgusting. It was the biggest anti-smoking campaign I've ever seen, which is me, basically shoot for 12 hours smoking, and then you realize you never want to smoke in your life.
Oh my. What do you think? You talked about the tone of the show. You've got the sort of really out there crazy stuff. You've got more human moments. What was the crazier or the craziest thing or scene for you to shoot?
Keith lives this double life. So this is, I think, the crux of, the way that he kind of goes back and forth between the life that he has at the office, the life that he has with his wife, who is played by Melissa Rauch, who's fantastic, and then the life that he has with his boyfriend on the show. And so oftentimes he would get caught in this loop, very much like a Brady Bunch episode of bopping back and forth and, who did he tell the lie to and how does he cover for it? And in one moment when his boyfriend is going to be the understudy performer for Starlight Express, he has to get out of a family trip. And so to get out of a family trip, he essentially poisons himself. He does X-Lax and, I feel like Kaopectate or something. He basically makes himself barf. He drinks a bunch of chili, gets all that in, and then I puke on my family all over our car. And to do that sequence was just absolutely insane. First of all, I was vomiting on little children, which is hilarious and distressing to them. And you can see it on their faces. But then to be rigged up properly, and that was a really kind of intense thing because you have to play it super emotionally, and like that he's surprised that he's vomiting and as he's puking over everybody. So that was a really fun, intense day.
Yeah, what do you think sort of like Keith's driver in everything? Like, what's the thing that makes Keith tick?
You know, for me, Keith is this character who can't live the life that he wants to live. You know, he's a closeted man in the 80s, and he's living in or working in a profession that makes you fill or check off a certain box. And he can't deviate from that. He wants to. And so what I kind of think about Keith is he's lying to everyone except his boyfriend. And so that's the only time we get to really see him. So I think it's the thing that motivates him is how can he not get caught? I mean, I think that's he's constantly living in fear. I think one of the choices I made with David and Jordan, who created the show, was I wanted Keith to be wearing a toupee, in the show, and kind of call that out a little bit because I felt like that toupee was like an outward expression of how he's lying to the world, and he lies to his wife, he lies to his children, he lies to his boss. No one knows the real Keith. So I think it's just basically a man on the run. And the way the show started and the reason why I signed on to it was, Keith was supposed to die at the end of the first season. It kind of walks right to that line. And when you see the finale, it gets very close to that. So, that was something that was really interesting to me. Like he basically runs out of roadway at the end of the season. He still does, which means I don't know where he goes from here, if he gets more hardened or more soft, but we'll see in season 2.
Yeah. So was Keith meant to be the one with the tie pin at some point? Was that?
Yes. From the pilot, things didn't really change for me or Keith until very late in the first season. David and Jordan brought me in, and I came in and I signed on just for 1 year, wanting to do this kind of character that was very different for me. And so when we got to, I think, shooting episode 8, they came to me and they said, "Hey, we think we have a way to save Keith." And I was thrilled because I've had the most fun working on this show. I mean, it's been an absolute blast, and getting to work with Don and Regina and Andrew. It was really, it was great. Very rarely do you get a chance to work with such great people and such amazing directors like Leslie Headland and Justin Tipman and Reggie Hudlin. We got to work with all these amazing people, Nisha Ganatra. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave. So it was a blessing in disguise in a way.
Oh, that's cool. We got and I was at the premiere, Paul, for Black Monday. I was fortunately able to be there. I actually took something from the premiere, party. It's up here. Oh, let me just.
I love it. I love this back wall. We're in the back wall next to the In-N-Out Cup.
I've got the Keith picture.
That's hilarious. I love that it got on the shelf. I feel honored.
There you go. We'll whack it up there. Well,
I love it.
Well, there we go. So we got Keith up there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One time when I was doing the league, we had a big premiere for the league, and they had pictures like that of every member of the cast. But the only difference is each picture was about 3 feet by 4 feet. So big, very big. And like 3 days after the premiere, I got a knock on my door. Like, and I go open it, and there's this big box outside. I'm like, what is in this box? I open it up, and it's a giant picture of me, like matted on, like pieces of plywood. And I was like, this is, I can never put this anywhere in my life. It would be the most egotistical thing I've ever had. So it hid away in a shed for a long time, and I finally threw it away. So I'm glad someone is taking it, so it doesn't have to come to me.
Yeah, well, you had left at that point, so I knew that you hadn't taken it, and there was a Showtime girl standing right at the door, and I thought, oh no, So I just said to her, "Hey, I can take this, right?" She was
Love it.
like,
Yeah, because what
"Yeah,
happens to all that stuff when everyone leaves?
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah." And she then said, she said, "I'll need to check with my manager." Yeah, I did. She goes, "That's above my level. I'll need to." So we got it, and I grabbed her ratios too, but
Oh, I love it.
he was waiting for a lift outside, so we
Got
gave
it.
him
Oh,
he got his.
that
So that's good. And the scenes with Horatio and Don and Regina, like in the bullpen, are very
yeah.
exciting. They're sort of fun scenes. How do they come together? How do you get those ones? Like, are they tough to get right? How do you work on
Well,
those?
we have this we have this cast that are all from different backgrounds. I mean, we already talked a little bit about Don, Academy nominated actor, has had this amazing, just life experience as an actor. Regina, can fluctuate between like, The Hate You Give and like Scary Movie. You have Andrew, who I think is this incredibly versed at comedy, from things like Girls to Book of Mormon. So everyone, Horatius from Saturday Night Live. I come from my own comedy background, which is very different. Yasser, is a writer, performer, stand-up. So we all don't share a similar language, and I think that actually makes for better scenes, because we don't know everyone's beats. We just know how to play our own things, and then we respect each other. And that was one of the things I loved about the league, was we all came from different backgrounds, so we kind of, you get a different rhythm, because people are, not everyone's doing the same thing. And so in those scenes, I think a lot of it is just figuring out the literal motion between the camera and the actors and the dialogue, because it has to be so punchy. There's one scene in the show, I think it's episode 4 or 5, the LaGuardia play, where I'm like walking with Yasser, and we're doing like a minute and a half walk and talk. We're through the office. I have a cast on. We have to get a jacket on. We have to hit an elevator. We have to get everything in. And it's all that kind of choreography that I think helps in a way. It's like dance moves. So we're improvising between moments. We are moving the scene, and David and Jordan just write great episodes, and so does everybody else on the show. So the base material is good, but then they're so flexible, and the actors are so flexible to kind of change it to make it work within the scene. And there wasn't that much improvising on the set. We would improvise like little flourishes and things like that. But the same thing with Veep. When I was on Veep last year, it was about taking the acting out of it. It was like losing the written word and just making it feel a bit more natural. And I think, David and Jordan write these really hard jokes. And Seth and Evan, when they came in to direct the pilot, they were very much like, how can we tell these jokes without making them feel like jokes? And that was a tone that I think we really kind of found, which is like, the jokes have to come from a place of these characters, not actors saying jokes. And I think a lot of the times when you see a sitcom, it's like, hold, like joke, hold, so it was about that. So yeah, it was the bullpen scenes are my most fun. The sexual harassment seminar was probably the most fun day on set. Neil Casey just crushes as a sexual harassment seminar trainer, who basically is giving us a lesson, but it's so warped by 1987 standards. And I think that's what the whole show is about, is like kind of saying like, look how far we haven't come. Like, yes, we were still doing sexual harassment seminars, but we didn't know anything back then. We're trying to be better people. We just lack the terms and capabilities.
Yeah, and like I think with your comedy background and the work you do at the UCB and your improv work, like how does that inform how you approach a role like this?
For me, I always kind of approach a role, and not to sound like too actory, but it's like I approach this role from like a level of like truth. Like, there's a whole, truth and comedy was this thing that came out of IO and Bravo Olympic. How can we base ground the most insane things in something real? So for me, I will look at a character and do a little bit of research. I watch a bunch of documentaries. I love watching docs. I feel like that's a great way to kind of learn from people, just kind of pick up a scent of the period a little bit like that. And then, you just have to make decisions. And, when you're improvising, you yes and everything. So you just keep on moving forward. And what was kind of wonderful about this show was every episode just kept on building. So whatever I said and did had consequences in the next episode. So you're kind of heightening this character. It was actually one of the most fun things to play, because oftentimes when you're in a sitcom, you're just tasked with doing the same thing over and over again. Different episodes, of course, but your character never grows, evolves, and changes. And I feel like I got as much as everybody else in the show got to kind of grow and change and evolve. So each episode, it's almost like improvising, even though I'm not improvising, a new scene. It's like, all right, what are the parameters here? Okay, yes, that's true. And if anything didn't ring true, I would talk to David and Jordan, but it was very rare, if ever.
And last question, Paul, what was the funniest line that you had in the show?
You know, the tongue twisters on this show were my favorite things to say and do. And there were a couple that I could never get. I feel the one that I love that was cut out for time, it actually wasn't even cut out for time. It was cut out for content, because it was like I had just seen my boyfriend perform at the Starlight Express, and I was like, oh man, you see, now I can't. They're so hard, like you jam them in your head.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess if I'm gonna give you an easy one just to make sure I get one out of here, I was like, I would say she she was, oh man, there's so many, but I feel like I'm gonna mess them all up because they're all like wordplay. I was like, she's got the body of Justine Bateman, but the mind of Michael J. Fox, or no, that was it. It was like, she's got the mind of Jason Bateman and the body of Justine Bateman. I'm gonna mess them all up. It's like if I don't practice my scales, I'll forget them. But every kind of episode, it was just like kind of turning these phrases. And there was one scene where I basically said, "Call me Rusty," 7 different times in 5 lines. I was like, they're gonna tell your "Call me Rusty." They're gonna call my Rusty your Rusty if they don't call you. I mean, like, again, yeah. So I'm sorry I don't have them on ready to go. Sorry.
No, like next time we chat, you'll need to like read through all your scripts.
I know. I would have pulled it, and I could have done it for you.
Yeah. No worries. Paul, thank you so much for chatting with us. To everyone watching this video, you can go to goldderby.com right now and make your predictions so you can compete against the experts, editors, and procrastinators. Yeah, make your predictions. And you can prove you're the smartest procrastinator in Hollywood. And you can click the subscribe button for this video to be alerted to more chats with Hollywood superstars. Paul,
by the way, we got to say that our FYC event is going to be pretty amazing. I got good word. It's not official. It is official, but I'll just say it's not official so I can't get sued. Snoop Dogg is going to be hosting our FYC event coming up. So that's, I think, May. Yeah. So, I mean, come on. Who has Snoop Dogg? You can't beat that. I mean, what's that going to be like? I don't know. Yeah.
So there you go. So that's exciting. I don't think I'll be over there in May. So unfortunately, I'll miss out on that FYC event. You'll have to steal something for me, Paul.
I will. I'll find something of me and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much for chatting. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, we're done.
Perfect. What do you teach?
I teach elementary school.
Oh, wow.